Thank you all for coming. Um, April 19th will be the dedication for Union Park marker. It'll be our second one in Baltimore, where the 1890s National League Orioles played. For those who live locally and want to attend, email will come out on that once we finalize our speakers. So welcome everybody. I've been looking forward to this one for a while. Obviously, I work at the Babe Ruth Museum, so I have that connection. And I've been a big fan of Hammer and Hank all these years. Never got to meet him, unfortunately. So I am looking forward to this personally. So Dan is up in North Jersey, I believe.
Yes.
Where the weather is unpredictable, just like the Mets. So he is going to take it over. He's going to talk about his book. The 50th anniversary is in a couple days, I believe the 8th. So let's all sit back and enjoy and see you guys the next meeting. Obviously, save your questions towards the end. Stay on mute, and you put questions in the chat or save them until Dan's done with this presentation. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This book was a labor of love. I've been a fan of the Braves and of Hank Aaron since 1957. And I actually predicted 10 years before it happened that Hank Aaron was going to break Babe Ruth's record. All the kids in my high school class or even junior high school, they laughed at me. But they're not laughing now because they're all acknowledging that, yes, I did predict that Aaron is going to break the record. It's a classic case of the tortoise and the hare. Hank Aaron being the tortoise. He never hit more than 47 home runs in any one season. Barry Bonds, as you all know, hit 73, but that was the only time in Barry Bonds' career that he hit as many as 50 home runs in a season. So as Yogi Berra might say, something's not kosher in the state of Denmark. And Hank Aaron set so many records. There's nobody really close to any of his major league records. If you don't count Barry Bonds, and I don't because steroids, if you don't count that record, Aaron holds records for extra base hits, total bases, runs batted in, home runs, and so many more. He was an all-star 25 times during a 23-year career because for 4 years, baseball played 2 all-star games a year to boost up the players' pension fund. So that's how he got to be an all-star 25 times during a 23-year career. Interesting to note, there were 8 all-star games that Hank Aaron was not a starting player. 8 times. Now, to me, that doesn't seem right, but it actually happened. However, let's look at the Hall of Fame voting. 9 writers never voted for Hank Aaron for the Hall of Fame. On your Hall of Fame ballot, you have 10 spaces. 9 writers left him off completely when he first became eligible in 1982. Aaron wanted to be a unanimous choice. Obviously, it didn't happen. So Mariano Rivera remains the only unanimous choice that we've had. But what Aaron did was just incredible. And what he did playing in Milwaukee and Atlanta rather than New York or Chicago or LA was even more incredible. But the biggest achievement, I think, is that he overcame such racial hatred and bigotry so many times in his career, not just when he was going for the record and he got tons of hate mail, but even early in his career, when he first started, he was signed by the Boston Braves, by the way, in 1952, broke in with the Milwaukee Braves in 1954, and he was signed to Jacksonville of the South Atlantic League, also known as the Sally League. That was an all-white league, and his team, the Jacksonville Tars, was an all-white team in an all-white league until the Braves sent Hank Aaron, Felix Millan, and one other player who never made the major leagues. They were all sent down there to break the color line. And Hank Aaron succeeded wildly. He won the MVP award that year. He batted .362 in Jacksonville. He was incredible. But so many things happened. For example, and I hope nobody's offended by this comment, a fan came up to him after a game, and also he was with Felix Mantilla, and he said, I just want to tell you, you niggers had a great game. Well, didn't he realize that was an insult? So somebody said to Aaron years later, what cities in that league were okay for you to play in? He said, none of them. Every single city in that league was segregated. They all had problems. Even when Aaron finally made the major leagues, he ran into segregation in Florida, spring training. He had to have a separate accommodation and a separate place to eat. A lot of restaurants wouldn't take black players. And that lasted for years. There were even cities on the major league circuit, Cincinnati, St. Louis, even Philadelphia, where segregation was continuing in the 50s. Just incredible. And he had to get past that. So Aaron's story was really amazing. It was a story of accomplishing a great, lofty objective over incredible hardships. So you can forget Willie Mickey and the Duke. Hank Aaron topped them all, not only as a baseball superstar, but as a civil rights champion, as I mentioned. At the time he retired, he had more homers, more RBIs, more extra base hits, and more total bases than anyone in baseball history. Tied Ruth with 2,174 runs scored. You take away his 755 home runs, Aaron still had more than 3,000 hits. And before I go on with more about Aaron's record, I want to tell you how difficult it was to write this book. This was my second Hank Aaron biography. I wrote one back in 1974 called Hammer and Hank, the Henry Aaron Story. This is my second biography, but this one was very, very difficult to write because, first of all, there were so many other Aaron books that came out. But secondly, it was much harder to get pictures for this book, much harder to get interviews for this book. Everybody was guarding their intellectual property. Nobody wanted to share. There were a few exceptions. And one of the big exceptions was Jeff Idelson's partner. Jeff Idelson, the former president of the Baseball Hall of Fame, has a partner named Jean Ruth, who is a wonderful photographer. She gave me 5 very beautiful Hank Aaron pictures and let me use them in the book. There's also an artist named James Fiorentino, the best baseball artist I've ever seen, and some of his artwork is in the book. However, when I contacted Topps for permission to reprint some Aaron cards, they never responded, which was par for the course for Topps. They don't answer queries. I've heard this from other writers as well. I don't get it. Don't they want publicity for their product? They could sell more cards, but they didn't answer. It also took me 6 months to get an interview with Billy Aaron. I interviewed Larry Aaron, Hank's son, first, and Larry gave me Billy's phone number. Billy's his stepmom. Larry gave me your phone number. So when I called the number, I got a recording that said, put in your access code. I didn't know there was an access code. So I called Larry Aaron back. I said, what's the access code? He said, I don't know. I always get through. So eventually I contacted Jeff Idelson again. And I said, Jeff, I can't contact Billy. I really need her for this book. Jeff gave me the name of Hank Aaron's personal attorney, Alan Tenenbaum. Spoke to him, great guy. And he spoke to Billy and arranged a personal phone interview for me with Billy Aaron. That became the epilogue of this book, my favorite chapter in the whole book. It was great. Hank and Billy got together in 1973, which was the year before he broke the record. And I don't know if any of you remember this, but the last week of the 73 season, I was in Atlanta. One of those games was rained out. Had that not happened, he might have broken the record the last week of the 73 season. He finished 1 home run short. Aaron hit 40 home runs that year, the last time he hit 40. But he could have hit more than that if that game hadn't been rained out. That was kind of a disappointment. But so many things happened for Hank Aaron. Also wanted to tell you a number of you I know are writers. Maybe have written some books also. I've never worked from an outline. There was no outline on this book. Sports Publishing said, we'd like you to do a book on Hank Aaron. I said, I'd love to do it, have it coincide with the anniversary year. And I just did chapters. I came up with chapters I wanted to do. They are not in chronological order. This is the only Aaron book ever written not in chronological order. I thought it would be better to do it by topics, as if I were writing 17 or 18 different articles about Hank Aaron. So this book is not chronological. Within each chapter, it is chronological, but otherwise it's not. There's a chapter on Tommy Aaron. There's a chapter on Hank Aaron's managers, Hank Aaron's milestones, how he reacted when the team announced it was moving from Milwaukee to Atlanta, which he was not in favor of. and especially a chapter on his legacy as Jackie Robinson's heir. He met Jackie Robinson when he was 14 years old, and Jackie Robinson came to Aaron's hometown of Mobile, Alabama. Aaron cut school to go hear Robinson speak, and he was so moved and so impressed that he became a friend of Jackie Robinson's and Don Newcomb later on, and Roy Campanella, and all those guys, all these black players, used to get together to play cards in their hotels because, as I mentioned at the outset, they couldn't stay in team hotels. They stayed in their own places, sometimes boarding houses, sometimes often in black neighborhoods. It depends what city they were in, where they went. So there were all kinds of reasons that Hank Aaron overcame a lot of injustice. I mentioned he was an all-star 25 times. In 23 years, he averaged 37 home runs per 162 games. The only players who ever did that well were Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds, not surprisingly. And Aaron averaged 35 home runs a year for 2 decades. That's quite an accomplishment. Also, now get this, he traveled 12 miles further around the bases on his hits than any player in baseball history, more than Babe Ruth, more than Ted Williams, and more than Willie Mickey and the Duke. He even beat world home run champ Sadaharu 10-9 in a home run contest. Best of all, Aaron did everything quietly without bravado while spending his entire career in small markets that obscured his performance even more. Now get this, he played more games in Milwaukee than he did in Atlanta, hitting more home runs on the road, 213, than he did at home because of the chilly, windy conditions in Wisconsin. In his 1986 historical baseball abstract, Bill James said Aaron would have had several 50-homer seasons had he played in an average home run park rather than Milwaukee County Stadium. Just a second. Comparing Aaron to Willie Mays, classic parallel to the tortoise versus the hare, because Mays had 2 50-home run seasons. Aaron never hit more than 47 in a season, never hit for the cycle, never won a Triple Crown, never hit 4 home runs in a game. Willie not only hit 4 home runs in a game, but he did it against Aaron's team, the Braves. I heard that game on the radio in 1961. Aaron and Eddie Matthews hit more home runs as teammates than any tandem, and that includes Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, Ted Williams and Jimmy Fox, Duke Snider and Gil Hodges, Mickey Mantle, Roger Maris, or Willie Mays and Willie McCovey. And Hank and Tommy Aaron hit more home runs as brothers than any brother tandem. And that includes the 3 Alous, 3 DiMaggios, and 5 Delahanties. Hank Aaron was part of the first trio of teammates to hit 40 home runs in the same season. That was back in 1973, along with Davey Johnson and Darrell Evans. And along with Chipper Jones and Warren Spahn, now get this, he was one of 3 men who homered for the Braves in at least 17 consecutive seasons. Yes, I said Warren Spahn, he was one of them, a pitcher. Aaron never got the credit he was due, even after hitting the home run that won the pennant for the 1957 Milwaukee Braves. Or knocking Babe Ruth out of the baseball record book 20 years later. Part of the problem for Aaron was his humble, almost introverted personality. Looked like he was falling asleep at the plate. Don Drysdale once suggested he was taking a nap between pitches. But he was awake long enough to hit 17 home runs against Drysdale, more than he hit against any other pitcher. He batted .362 against Sandy Koufax, .342 against Steve Carlton, not too shabby. He was the first player with 3,000 hits and 500 home runs, even though reaching 3,000 requires 20 years with at least 150 hits. Aaron did it in 17. No wonder he got both All-Star and MVP votes every year from 1955 to 1973. As a black man challenging Babe Ruth's record, the most legendary in professional sports, he coped with a deluge of hate mail from bigots who did not want to see a white man's record fall to a black man. Things got so bad as he approached the record that Aaron had 2 rooms on the road, the one he slept in and the one reserved in his real name. Because of death threats against him and his family, FBI agents followed Aaron everywhere. He even told Dusty Baker and Ralph Garr, young black outfielders that he took under his wing, not to sit next to him in the Braves dugout in case he got shot during a game. Amazing. A pioneer as a player, Aaron left segregated Mobile, Alabama, to play for the barnstorming Indianapolis Clowns. He later became the last Negro Leagues product playing in the big leagues. But he integrated the Southern League. Given a choice, I'm sure he would have rather stayed in Milwaukee. Moving to Atlanta in '66 destroyed his first marriage and made it much more difficult for him to concentrate on baseball. There's no telling how much better he might have done without the twin heartaches of bigoted fans who screamed racial epithets or the agony of a distressed spouse at home. And where could the poor guy go to relax as he approached Ruth's record? Really nowhere. Aaron should have probably won as many as 4 MVP awards. Look at the records. He also probably should have won MVP honors in the 1957 World Series when he led both teams with a .393 batting average and 3 home runs. His performance that October, coupled with his play against the Mets in the first National League Championship Series 12 years later, is where he really stands apart from Willie Mays, whose postseason record is nothing to write home about. And Aaron was hardly a home run hitter. He won 2 batting titles, finishing with a better lifetime average than Mays, and led his league each of the 3 Triple Crown categories at least twice. Aaron also played hurt, avoiding the disabled list even when nagging injuries late in his career cut into his playing time. He was on the DL only once when he broke his leg sliding in September of his rookie year, 1954. A versatile star, Hank Aaron played 27 games at second base one year when the Braves needed him. He also spent a chunk of time at first base, played a little third base, and moved from right field to center when Billy Bruton was injured during the 1957 World Series. Aaron started and finished his career with the Braves in left, then spent 2 years as a DH with the Milwaukee Brewers, thus starting and finishing his career in the same city. Along with Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron is one of 2 players who have their own permanent exhibit in the Baseball Hall of Fame. In fact, there's more space devoted to Aaron than to any other player. The last time he appeared at induction weekend, which was 2019, I was there. He got the loudest and longest standing ovation of any player on the star-studded dais. Statues of Aaron stand outside 3 different ballparks, and he received medals from 2 different presidents. But he still had plenty of detractors, including 9, as I mentioned, who wouldn't vote for him to Cooperstown. And maybe they were the same guys who ignored Aaron in the MVP voting year after year. He played 23 years, but won only 1 MVP and never finished better than 3rd any other time. And you thought Rodney Dangerfield got no respect? Want more proof? Look at the history of the All-Star game. Though selected an All-Star record 25 times, he made only 14 starts in right field, 1 in left field, 1 in center, and 1 in first base. 8 times he was riding the pine when the All-Star game started. Maybe that's why Aaron wasn't even invited to Major League Baseball's 100th anniversary dinner in a Washington hotel in 1969. It hardly mattered since he was omitted from the All-Star all-time outfield selected by the media. Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, and that Mays guy again. When the Midsummer Classic moved to Cincinnati a year later, Aaron's hotel reservation was misplaced. "We have nothing in your name, and we've never heard of you," the desk clerk told Aaron. Even President Nixon struck out in dealing with Hank twice. He once sent him a holiday greeting addressed to Frank Aaron, and later sent a congratulatory telegram after Aaron's 700th home run to the Braves Booster Club rather than the Braves Baseball Club. But that's better than the record of Bowie Kuhn, the former commissioner, who didn't send a wire or even show up to witness Aaron's 715th. Later voted by fans the most memorable moment in baseball history, Kuhn only made his presence felt by demanding the Braves play Aaron in the 1974 opening series in Cincinnati. The team didn't want to do that because they didn't want him to hit number 715 on the road. Former Boston Braves manager Tommy Holmes once predicted Aaron would never make the majors. "He can't pull the ball," said Holmes. His .345 batting average in 1945 helped him finish second in the voting for National League MVP. And how about astrologist Jean Dixon? She predicted he would never break Babe Ruth's record. Braves PR man Lee Walbert heard about that and said, yeah, but she doesn't have to pitch against him. A rare contact hitter with power, Aaron had such a good eye that he walked more often than he struck out. In fact, he averaged just 63 strikeouts a season. Although Willie Mays never led the National League in runs batted in, Hank Aaron did it 4 times. He also led in total bases 8 times, 5 more than Mays. Speaking of total bases, let's take another look at Aaron's total, 6,856. Nobody's even close. Albert Pujols had 6,211, Stan Musial 6,134, and that Mays guy again, 6,080. Aaron's 6,856 total bases would equal 1,714 home runs, 2,258 triples, or 3,328 doubles. A player would have to match Ruth's single season mark of 457 total bases and keep it up 15 years to even approach Aaron's record, and he'd still be 1 base short. You want stats? Hank Aaron hit 362 with 6 home runs in 17 postseason games and 398 between the 1973 All-Star game and the end of the season. He also had a 669 slugging percentage in 71, the best in the National League since Stan Musial's 702 in 1948. Aaron and Matthews, the famous tandem pictured on a memorable green and yellow 1959 Topps card that says Fence Busters, homered in the same game 75 times, more than any other tandem. And that means Maris and Mantle and you, Mason McCovey. Aaron and Matthews were matched against each other in the old Home Run Derby show, which I loved. That was filmed at Wrigley Field in Los Angeles. In a preview of things to come, Hank earned $30,000 in 1959, worth nearly 2 years of his salary at the time. Speaking of salary, Hank topped out at $240,000, exactly $500 million less. $500,000 less than today's bare minimum. Today's minimum is $740,000. Hank's top salary, $240,000. Something to think about. Once asked what he might earn now, he said, I would walk into Ted Turner's office and say, hello, partner. Aaron played for the Braves before Turner's TBS Superstation made the Braves America's team by beaming its signal to all 50 states. He also played there before the advent of free agency and long before the Braves won a record 14 straight division titles. If Eddie Matthews and Warren Spahn had not been his teammates, he would have been a one-man show. Even during the final days of his race with Ruth, when the Atlanta team played like the Bad News Braves, fans filed out of the ballpark the minute Aaron left the game. But nothing could spoil his legacy. Mickey Mantle once said, as far as I'm concerned, Henry Aaron is the best baseball player of my era. And Muhammad Ali must have agreed because he said, Hank Aaron is the only man I idolize more than myself. Longtime Hall of Fame President Jeff Idelson got the last word. Henry wasn't the quintessential showman, but succeeded without having to be showy. I don't think I ever met someone as consistent as he was, especially considering his demeanor off the field. He was even-keeled, and that helped him a great deal. 5 years after he retired, Hank Aaron got 97.8% of the ballots in the voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame class of 1982. The only man with a higher percentage at that time was Ty Cobb, who got 98.2% in 1936 when the first class was elected. Aaron's percentage was even higher than his idol Jackie Robinson's. Aaron was 14 when he first saw Robinson in Mobile. Years later, he adopted Robinson's legacy, befriended Martin Luther King and Andrew Young, and became a champion for civil rights. John F. Kennedy, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama all said his work for them on the campaign trail helped them become president. Not bad for a scared teenager who left Mobile to play baseball with $2 in his pocket and a change of clothes in a cardboard suitcase. Today, Major League Baseball honors his legacy with the Hank Aaron Award, given annually to the top hitter in each league. His old boyhood home is a baseball museum that stood next to a minor league ballpark named Hank Aaron Stadium. It has since been moved by the city of Mobile because the Mobile minor league team is no longer active. The numerals 44 are carved into the outfield grass at Truist Park, the third home of the Braves in Atlanta. Fittingly, Hank Aaron threw out the first pitch before the first game. He was then a team executive, serving as farm director first, later director of player personnel, and finally special assistant to the president. He faced many tough decisions, even cutting his oldest son, Larry, and future Atlanta manager Brian Snitker, but always proved the epitome of grace under pressure. Former general manager John Schuerholz was asked last year what it was like to be Hank Aaron's boss. He said, "Nobody is the boss of Hank Aaron." People liked Aaron because he liked people. He knew politicians, movie stars, athletes, and other celebrities who seemed delighted to befriend him. And he made millions as an astute businessman who ran restaurant chains and car dealerships. The author of a real-life rags to riches odyssey, he overcame segregation and racial hatred in his hometown of Mobile when he integrated the Sally League, and when Florida Grapefruit League cities and several of the majors discriminated against blacks long after Jackie Robinson broke the color line. Hank Aaron lacked the muscle of Mantle, the flair of Mays, and the swagger of Snyder, but finished far ahead of Willie Mickey and the Duke, where it counted most in the record books. He had the elegance of Lou Gehrig, the passion of Jackie Robinson, the timing of Bobby Thompson, and the modesty of Roger Maris. One of the things I'm most proud of is my consistency, he once said. Every day is a new day, and every time you go up to the plate is a new time. That last time up is like reading yesterday's newspaper. It's gone, and so am I. Thank you very much for listening. Hi, Peter.
Very good. Very good.
you.
Thank you, Dan. Very professional.
Thank you.
Who has questions for Dan? Either use the chat or unmute yourself and ask.
Irina Clements here. First, thank you so much. That was wonderful. So I know that there's a statue in Milwaukee and a statue in Atlanta. Where's the third statue?
The third statue, I believe, is in front of the Morehouse Medical School. The Aarons donated millions of dollars to that college.
Oh, super. Okay, thank you so much.
By the way, I got to tell you guys, Billy Aaron was fantastic. She was very giving. Her quotes were wonderful, and it was great to be able to get her. It took 6 months, as I said. And also, another thing about the book that you guys should know, since I've been a Braves fan for all these years, and since I went up and started taking pictures of Aaron, in 1965, when I was 17, was my first time I was on a major league field for a Braves-Mets game in New York. I've followed Aaron closely with a camera and a tape recorder ever since. Many of the pictures that appear in this book are pictures that I took. There are a few pictures of Aaron with me, including some that were taken in Jarry Park, Montreal in 1969 when I was a senior in college. There is also a picture that is on my Facebook page. It's the main picture on my Facebook page that shows Aaron talking to Jimmy Carter, the governor of Delaware, and I am clearly visible behind Aaron's right shoulder. I was interviewing Aaron when Jimmy Carter came in with the governor of Delaware, and Aaron excused himself and said, "I've got to greet the governor." So I waited, Aaron greeted him, and then came back to the interview with me. But that picture, I didn't even know it existed until I saw it on MLB.com last year. Okay. Thanks, Irina.
Anybody else? Questions for Dan? Dan, is the book out now or?
The book is going to be out by May 1st. You have to pre-order it from Amazon, but you can do that.
And which publisher is it?
It's Sports Publishing, a division of Skyhorse. I've done several books for them.
Okay. I hope to get it by the convention. So if you're there, I'd like to talk to you.
I'd like to go there. I do have a conflict, but I'm going to try.
Okay.
And by the way, I've been a SABR member since 1981, and I'm the vice chair of the New Jersey chapter, the Elysian Fields chapter.
We just had David Krell on Sunday night. So
Yeah, he's the boss.
yep. Anybody else who's got questions? You have to unmute yourself. Tom, unmute yourself.
I have a question about Hank Aaron when he played in Jacksonville.
Yes.
Is there anything about his career in Jacksonville that exists in that town? In other words, are there any, if you go to the ballpark there, or if there's a museum, is there anything that is dedicated to Hank Aaron there?
That's a good question. I would guess that the ballpark that he played in with the Jacksonville Tars is no longer there. I didn't actually go to Jacksonville, but I do know that we have a picture of him with his Jacksonville manager, Ben Garrity, because he said Garrity was the best manager he ever had.
Okay, there's probably something of that in Jacksonville somewhere, because that is probably the place that kind of gave him the opportunity to get to that next level.
Yes. And he was a lot happier in Eau Claire, Wisconsin than Jacksonville.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
As I was going to say, there's a statue of an 18-year-old Henry Aaron in front of the Eau Claire minor league ballpark. That's exactly how thin he was back then.
Sure.
Is that would be what, a fourth statue, or I don't know what?
Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you for that information. You know, some of these old minor league ballparks and Negro League ballparks just don't exist anymore. There's going to be a game, by the way, at Rickwood Fields, which is the oldest, from what I understand, the oldest existing ballpark. It predates Fenway. I think it was from 1910, Rickwood Field in Birmingham. There's going to be a major league game there this year.
Yep. Anybody else? Questions, comments? The Orioles are still losing, in case anybody's following it. It's rainy and crummy here in downtown Baltimore. The game was supposed to be at 1 o'clock, and they didn't start it until 6. So it tells you how bad things have been.
Wow. The Mets generously, they rain themselves out, which they should have. The way they're playing, they're better off with a rain out.
Tom, you got a question?
Yes. Do you have anything in a book about his relationship with his brother Tommy?
There's a whole chapter on Tommy in the book. Whole chapter.
Now, they hold the record for the most home runs by two brothers.
Yes. And they had home runs in the same game 3 times in 1962. And one game on July 12th, 1962 against the Cardinals, Tommy led off as a pinch hitter in the bottom of the 9th, hit a home run. Next 3 guys got on base, and Henry hit a grand slam to win the game. The only time he ever hit a game-winning grand slam. But Hank and Tommy homered in that same inning. Pretty unusual for brothers. Tommy never got a fair shake because of his last name. Hank said that all the time. He wasn't going to be Hank Aaron, but he could have been a pretty good ball player on his own.
I'm a big Hank Aaron fan, and I've read several biographies, so I'm looking forward to adding this to the pile somewhere down the line.
Good, that'll be great, Peter. Thank you. Dusty Baker wrote the foreword, by the way. It was a really terrific foreword.
Good. Good. So hopefully I'll see some of you guys, you know, in Zoom calls and stuff over the next several months. I guess it's April, so we got 4 months till the next convention, and there's going to be SABR will announce in the next couple of weeks who's running for the board, and I believe there's a candidate forum on April 10th. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. So,
Hi.
So,
This is not book related, but I wanted to ask, Oliver just joined, he's a new member. I'm his mom here for moral support. But we read something about there being like, a statistics committee in the Baltimore chapter, and he's interested in becoming a part of that. Do you know?
okay, reach out to me directly and I'll send you to the right people.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem. Where do you guys live?
We're in Baltimore County.
Okay. I'm downtown. I'm a mile from the ballpark, so I'm right in Federal Hill.
Awesome.
So welcome aboard. Wonderful, definitely. Guys, ever reach out to me anytime, email or text, and I'll get back to you. And appreciate all your support. We are now the largest chapter in SABR, even though we've only been around less than 9 years. So we're very fortunate. And now with new Orioles ownership, we hope to keep making friends. And I'm going to give you my email in the chat real quick, or I forget. And if you're a SABR member, you guys can always look up in the directory when you log in and find pretty much everybody. Obviously, very famous people aren't in the directory, but most members, active members are. So, and we're very fortunate that two of the most famous active members, Janet Marie Smith and Tim Kirchin, are members of the Baltimore chapter. So, all righty. Well, stay dry. I don't know where everybody is, but stay dry, stay cool, stay warm. We'll see you next time around. And if you guys need anything or have any questions, let me know. And hopefully we'll all get into meet in person in the near future. To let you know, we have not planned the Orioles outing yet for 2024, but we may be doing a minor league game again with the Philadelphia chapter, possibly at the end of June. So stay tuned for that. So much appreciated. Have a good evening. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys for your time, and see you in a couple weeks.
Thank you. It was an amazing talk. I appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Old hat, by the way.
Great.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Bye.